There's something else about, like, friendships as well, too. Friendships are unique relationships because unlike family relationships, we choose to enter them. And unlike other voluntary bonds, like marriages and romantic relationships, they lack a formal structure. You wouldn't go months without speaking to your significant other, hopefully, but you might go that long without contacting a friend. Survey upon survey upon survey show how important people's friends are to their happiness. And although friendship tends to change as people age, there's consistency in what people want from them. So a professor of interpersonal communication at Ohio University, William Rawkins, said, "I've listened to someone as young as 14 and someone as old as 100 talk about their close friends, and there are three expectations of close friends that I'm hearing people describe and value across the entire life course. Someone to talk to, someone to depend on, and someone to enjoy. These expectations remain the same, and the circumstances under which they're accomplished change. The voluntary nature of friendship makes it subject to life's whims more than formal relationships do. In adulthood, people go and move away, and friendships are the relationships that take the hit the most of the time. You're always stuck with your family, and you prioritize your spouse and your children, of course. But once you could run over to John's house at a moment's notice because you lived down the block to each other to see if you could come out and play at the playground, now you have to ask John if he has a couple hours to get a drink in the next, 6 weeks. The beautiful thing about relationships, though, is that friends are friends because they want to be. You can choose to get in and you can choose to get out. And throughout life, from grade school to the retirement home, friendship continues to confer your health benefits, mental and physical. And as life accelerates, people's priorities and responsibility shifts, and so friendships are affected for better or for worse. Young adulthood is the golden age for forming relationships, especially for people who have the privilege and blessing to be able to go to college. Friendships become more complex and meaningful during young adulthood. Because in childhood, friends are mostly kids who are fun to play with, you're also in your classes, who live down the street from you. In adolescence, there's a little bit more of self-disclosure and support between friends as they're going through puberty together and discovering their identity together. Let's see. By young adulthood, people usually are a little bit more secure in themselves compared to adolescence and are more likely to seek out friends who they share value with on important things and let little things slide. According to the Encyclopedia of Human Relationships, young adults often spend 10 to 25 hours a week with friends. Wow, that's not me. And found that people between 20 and 24 years... Oh, okay, so 20 to 24 years old? Yeah, I definitely did that from 20 to 24. I'm not a young adult technically anymore. I keep forgetting that. Spend the most time per day socializing with others on average than any other age group. So people who are in college, basically. College is the environment that usually facilitates this. And even young adults who don't go to college are less likely to have some of the really hard responsibilities that take away from friendship building. So that's like marriage, mortgages, full-time jobs, caring for children or their older parents. And the friendship networks are denser too in your youth and your young adulthood. People move for school and work and family, and the networks start spreading out. And so you have a friend that's like in California, you have a friend who lives in the UK now, and so on. And nowadays, the life is just so globalized and international that it's mobile, and it's a little bit damaging to the social fabric, the social fabric, of friendships that we used to have in previous generations. And we're not as obligated to friends as we are to romantic partners or our families or our jobs. So that's the idea of like you willingly come in to a friendship, but sometimes you willingly leave because other things take priority instead. As people enter into middle age, they have more demands on their time that are much more pressing than friendship. It's easier to put off catching up with a friend than it is to skip your kids' play or an important business trip. The ideal of people's expectation for friendship is always a tension with the reality of life. The bittersweet aspect of young adulthood begins with all this time that you have for friendship. And it's just so important because it helps you figure out who you are, what you're going to do next. And then once you're at the end of young adulthood, you don't really have time for those people who helped you make those decisions. And also sometimes you just don't live close to each other anymore. And that time is poured into your family and your job. And even if you're someone who stays single, you are affected by your friends who decide to go and get married and have kids. And there's like a huge drop off in friends when that occurs. And then as people move through life, you make and keep friends in different ways. Sometimes you're independent. Sometimes you just make friends wherever you go. Sometimes it's more friendly acquaintances than deep friendships. And I think that's mostly me. I have a lot of friendly acquaintances. And I'm pretty happy with that, personally. But not everyone is. So the most flexible people are the ones who are acquisitive, people who stay in touch with their old friends but continue to make new ones as they move through the world. So I think I would be fitting into that category. Any new friends that people make in middle age are likely to be a part of other relationships. So your coworkers, the parents of your children's friends, a friend of your spouse. It's easier for time-strapped adults to do double duty in that aspect. So your kid needs to have a play group. Okay, in the neighborhood, we get all the kids together at the playground. You're sitting next to another parent, you strike up a conversation, and you start like an acquaintanceship and then a friendship because you have that other bond of, well, our children are friends. We asked people to tell us the story of the last person they became friends with and how they transitioned to acquaintance or to friend. It was interesting that a lot of people struggled to be able to define what friend is. And in old age, your busyness in life starts to tail down. Once people retire and the kids leave the nest, there's more time to have this sort of shared living kind of friendships again. People reconnect with their old friends they lost touch with. They go out to like senior centers or to local bars again once they don't have kids in the home anymore. And there's something called the socio-emotional selectivity theory. It seems more urgent with time that towards the end of life, people begin to prioritize experiences that make them happiest in the moment, which includes spending time with close friends and family. And whether or not people hold on to old friends or grow apart comes down to dedication and communication and having both of those line up with each other. So the number of months that friends reported to being close in 1983 predicted if they were still close in 2002. And it suggested that if you were already invested in a friendship already, the more likely you're going to keep it going. And people feel the need that they need to get as much out of the friendship as they're putting in, and you need that type of equity back and forth. So if you're someone that's pretty introverted and you don't feel like you need a lot of attention for certain types of friendships because you've already built that bond, and that's how I feel personally. You make good friends. You make good friends with those type of people. And I met, I'm still friends with one of my friends from high school. I'm still friends with like about 3 or 4 people from college. And now I'm starting to make some good friendships, like within streamer groups, and especially with the New York City streamer meetups that I meet with them kind of outside of the meetups, and I look forward to seeing that they've RSVP'd and I'm going to see them the next month and so on. Communication skill and mutual understanding of prioritization helps friends successfully transition through life changes that threaten that stability. Friends don't need to communicate often or intricately. They just need to be similar on the same wavelengths. And there's obviously complexity in that, and texting and email, sending each other funny Snapchats or a meme, seeing each other in person once in a while. as long as you do a bunch of those different things, that friendship gets stronger and stronger. If you only have this Facebook tie, you don't really text each other, you don't really play a game together once in a while, that friendship is in greater jeopardy of not surviving into the next decade, for instance, or even into the next year. And there's 4 levels of maintaining a relationship. The first is just trying to keep the relationship alive at all, saying happy birthday, Merry Christmas, liking your friend's tweet, replying to their funny Facebook post. These are like just very basic things that you can do to like remind them, oh yeah, Jess from back home, like, yeah, that was a good friend of mine in high school. And then another one is being able to like get back in touch with someone, writing a message, sending supporting comments when they are going through a tough time, and doing like private messages, basically. Social media makes it so much easier to be able to keep up those relationships, but it's also very shallow. Because in your mind, you sometimes think like, oh, I saw my friends, like, oh, they're going to that work trip. Oh, they just came back from that vacation. I'm up to date. But if you're not communicating with your friend and being like, hey, how was that vacation? Or, oh no, I'm so sorry, I heard you lost your job. Do you want to go over your resume together or something like that? You're not actually communicating. You're not actually trying to make a cohesive bond together. Let's see. So I think that makes a lot of sense. Let's see if, how can we conclude this? So, friendships are susceptible to circumstance. If you think all the things we have to do, we have to work, we have to take care of our kids, we have to take care of our own bodies, our parents are starting to get frail, I need to take care of them, oh, my significant other just lost their job, we need to, like, do this. Friends have to be put off to the side. They fall through the cracks. And if you have a strong enough friendship, they'll be able to deal with that that valley for a while, and a few years later you come back and like, hey, everything was like really crazy for a while, but hey, I'm here.